there's, people who want to have their traditional diet year round. There's a lot of folks that come from the Middle East, come from Southeast Asia, and they're used to halal meat. They're used to eating lamb, goat. They don't really want McDonald's.
Yeah.
They want to come. Yeah, they want to come to the farm themselves and slaughter it themselves, or direct to consumer sort of thing.
This is the Real Food, Real People podcast.
Welcome back to the Real Food, Real People podcast. I'm Dylan Honcoop, and this is chronicling my journey to get to know the real people behind the food here in Washington State. This week, we go to Rochester, Washington, where we meet Imad Ahmad, who has Olive Branch Ranch, and he is bringing his family full circle back to their farming roots from Palestine. His family's from the West Bank, and he's raising halal meat here in Washington, including lamb and goat and quite a few other things that he's working on. Great conversation. What an awesome guy and a really cool story. So you're going to enjoy talking with Imad and finding out about his farm. We did the interview right inside his barn on his property. It's from the 1890s, so it doesn't get much more picturesque and classic than where we were able to chat with Imad. Our sponsors here on the podcast are the Dairy Farmers of Washington, supporting the podcast and informing people, educating folks about the real life of dairy farming here in Washington State and the things that go on to make the delicious dairy products Washington State dairy producers do. You can check them out online at wadairy.org. They even have a full virtual farm tour there. And I really think you should check it out. Again, wadairy.org, wadairy.org. Manna Insurance Group is another one of our sponsors. Good folks there at Manna really believe in building community and legacy and doing what's right and being good stewards. That's why they wanted to support us with a podcast here. I've known quite a few of the folks there. They have offices in Linden, Washington, where I'm at. They have an office in California as well as Arizona, and they do all different kinds of insurance, including farms, personal, liability insurance, auto insurance, umbrella policy kind of stuff. They do it all at Manna Insurance Group, mannainsurancegroup.com. Check them out and thank them for supporting the podcast. Williams also supporting our podcast with a community grant, powering your clean energy future. That's what Williams is all about, and we thank them. Also, Washington Red Raspberries supporting the podcast. And a crazy time right now, as I talk about this, we're in the middle of red raspberry harvest here in my part of Washington State. My dad's a red raspberry grower, and they're out picking berries right now. So it's a busy, busy time for Washington Red Raspberry growers, and we appreciate their support on the podcast as well. Now, without further ado, let's go to Rochester, Washington, to the 1890s barn of Imad Ahmad at the Olive Branch Ranch. So you guys grow all kinds of stuff here. Like what's all on your list of what you're farming right now?
Yeah. Oh, well, we got all sorts of projects and things that we'd love to do. And, one day I'm like, we should have a nursery business. We should plant olives. And it's like, okay, focus on your bread and butter and what kind of makes you, what's in demand and what people actually want.
So what is your bread and butter?
That would be grass-fed, pasture-raised lamb and goats. That's like That's like the go-to. That's what we're always out of stock of. That's, you know.
And I see that your stuff is halal.
It is.
So what does that really mean?
So halal and kosher, it's basically the same thing. So kosher is basically blessed by a rabbi.
Right.
And it's also the way it's raised and the way it's harvested has to be in accordance with kosher principles. So that's the same thing with halal. Halal in Arabic just means permissible. So something that's permissible.
Right.
So when something's halal, the animal's not sick. And there's a lot of misconceptions online. If you go on YouTube and you look up stuff, people are like, "Oh no, halal meat. What does that mean?" Like, and people get freaked out. So there's a lot of misconceptions about halal, but halal just means something that's permissible to eat.
And there's a little bit more to it with the raising of halal meat than like other things, right? Because I know
Right.
like my dad's, well, I don't know about halal, but like my dad's raspberries, you know, the rabbi comes and blesses the processing facility where they pack it to send it to the freezer so it can be labeled kosher.
Right. No pork products involved in it.
Right.
You know, sees, make sure everything's legit. So it's basically the same with halal. You know, the knife has to be sharp. The animal can't suffer. The animal has to have, you know, water at all times. Has to have a good life. You know, basic good things. You have to actually eat what animals eat. You know, the mad cow disease stuff that happened in Europe. You know, a couple of decades ago, that was happening because the cows weren't eating. You know, someone thought it was a good idea to feed cows, a ruminant animal, other, you know, mushed up cow products. And it's like, no. Ruminants were meant to eat grass. That's what they were meant to eat.
So anyone who ate halal meat at that time didn't have anything to worry about.
I don't think so.
At least they shouldn't have.
Right.
If everyone was following the rules and doing the right stuff.
Exactly.
So what kind of a market do you have for that?
So actually, there's a huge market. I mean, there's a lot of changing demographics in the Pacific Northwest. There's, you know, a lot of immigrants from Southeast Asia. There's, you know, a large African community in Seattle, Somali American, Ethiopian, and they like goat, they like lamb, they like mutton. So yeah, it's going good. There's, you know, a lot of demand, and I don't have a lot of supply, so that's good.
Well, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely.
Yeah, because how many other people are doing this kind of thing here in Washington? Do you know?
Well, there's a few, but I think there's kind of you know, a disconnect with, and that's kind of why we have it like a niche, you know, market, is that we have, you know, the ethnic market might not understand, you know, all the work that goes into the you know, what, you know, traditional farmers here do, and then vice versa. You know, the farmer might say like, oh no, I'm not gonna go with kind of what your parameters are as far as what you want to do with the animal and whatnot. So we're kind of unique. We know, and we have a lot of connections to the community, so it works out.
So how did you get started doing that?
So basically how I got started doing this is, you know, every year there's a holiday that a lot of people may have heard of. It's Eid.
Yep.
So E-I-D, Eid.
Which is like the end of Ramadan, right?
Yeah, it's the end of Ramadan, but then there's a month later, there's also another, you know, a second Eid, and that's the Eid that it's a harvest festival, essentially.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you're able and you have the financial well-being, you will harvest a lamb, and you'll give 1/3 to your community, give 1/3 to the needy, and, you know, keep 1/3 for yourself, essentially. So that's kind of, you know, obligatory on every Muslim to do that. So it gets pretty busy every year, and it changes. The dates change, so it's always interesting trying to raise lamb and goat for that.
So yeah, because traditional lamb and goat farming kind of has seasons to it,
Right.
But if that date is moving, like what's the kind of date range that it could be in? And, and does that make it hard for like breeding and raising?
It does. You kind of have to adjust your breeding cycle by 15, 20 days every year or a month every year. So yeah, you just kind of have to make sure. And then there's, you know, people who want to have their traditional diet year round. You know, there's a lot of folks that come from the Middle East, come from Southeast Asia, and they're used to halal meat. They're used to eating lamb, goat. They don't really want McDonald's.
Yeah.
You know, they want to come. Yeah, they want to come to the farm themselves and slaughter it themselves, or, you know, direct to consumer sort of thing. So,
are there any McDonald's that do halal?
I think some in the Middle East. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Burger King.
Yeah, I would suppose in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't have very many customers if they didn't offer those options.
Yeah. There's actually in the UK. There's a big halal movement. Yeah. A lot of fish and chip places and chicken places, and they got a lot of, they're starting to, you know, like we said, it's a huge demographic that's immigrating. There's the changing demographic, and it's something that people want.
So let's go back a little bit farther. I mean, that's how that need is how you got into raising halal meat. How did you get into farming, period?
Yeah. So like every year, me and my dad would, you know, I've been, you know, harvesting animals and been a part of, you know, agriculture since I was a kid. We didn't live on a farm, but my parents are from Palestine, and my dad lived on a farm, and he had dairy cows, he had, you know, dairy sheep, and my grandpa used to import sheep from Romania and whatnot. So he lived on a farm, when he came to college in America and, kept on the traditions of eating lamb and goat, we would be kids and he'd take us to farms when we were kids, and I remember being 6 years old with my sister, and my dad would be like, all right, hold this goat down, hold this lamb down. But every year it got harder and harder to find, someone who just let us would harvest something on their farm, or B, just a place to find lamb. It was like, can't find fresh lamb.
Yeah.
Most of the lamb in the United States is imported from New Zealand or Australia, so frozen.
Yeah.
So it was like, man, this is tough. Every year you're calling a guy and he has one and he doesn't have one, and it's like, man, one day I'm gonna just do this myself. And then I was at the time I was big into health and eating right and changing my diet and whatnot, and I just randomly was searching chickens on Craigslist. And I drove down south 30 minutes, picked up 3 chickens, and built the chicken coop in the back of my parents' backyard. And I was like, we're going to get fresh eggs.
Nice.
Didn't know anything about anything. And then that kind of just started the journey. I started looking for property. And in 2017, we bought 5 acres and 3 lambs. And then we were like, okay, we're going to have these lambs for ourselves. So that's kind of where we started in 2017. Yeah. And then folks were like, hey, do you have a lamb for us? And I was like, sorry, family, friend. No, just these 3. And then I started buying more and selling more. And I was like, maybe this could be a business in the future. Yeah, that's kind of the inception of it.
And then it just kept growing.
Yeah, then it
gradually
kept growing
from there. Or?
Yeah, absolutely, it kept growing, and now we got 150, 200 head out in the field out there. Yeah, so yeah, we're moving, so it's good. And then we about almost a year ago we bought this place, which is 17 acres. So this definitely helps. So we kind of outgrew the place, the 5 acres down the street pretty rapidly. Yeah, I didn't have enough space and to do what we wanted to do.
A good problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
So you say a lot of lamb and goat is usually imported when people get it and it's frozen. What's the difference between frozen and fresh?
Oh, well, it's totally different. First of all, we have hair sheep, so they shed like a dog in the spring. So that
not like wool sheep.
Yeah, not wool sheep. So we have hair sheep, cotton sheep, and Dorper sheep, a little mix, and the flavor is a lot more mild. A lot of American folks are like, oh man, lamb is gamey or greasy, or I just don't like it. Usually what they're having is something that's not fresh, maybe old, like it's just mutton, or they're having like wool sheep from New Zealand or whatnot that's been frozen and shipped for 7 months in a container, and it's like that's going to be different than if you go to the farm and get it directly from the farmer. So yeah, the taste is totally different, and
so that's where immigrants with backgrounds like your family and from parts of the world where that's common, they have that stuff and they're like, no, we need the real deal.
Yeah, we want the real deal. We want something super fresh.
Yeah,
and then age also plays a factor into it. Like if the older mutton doesn't taste as good as lamb. So so anything over a year is considered a sheep, and anything younger is considered a lamb. So younger than a year. Yeah.
What age do you usually harvest?
Anywhere from, so they start to be a decent size at 6 months, but we like to push it out a little bit for anywhere from 7 to 9 months is a good harvest range. Yeah.
And you said you have how many, like 200 head or something?
No, we have probably 90 breeding ewes, and then the ram lambs out there. We harvest all the boys and keep all the girls, essentially. Yeah. To grow the flock.
Yeah. So how big are you going to get?
Oh, I don't know. We'll see.
Just keep going.
We'll keep going. We need more to sell to folks. So there's the supply problem.
Yeah.
The cool thing is that we've started to reach out to the neighbors and whatnot. I got a friend, Jacob, who's fairly close here. He's the cattle guy, and he does all the cattle. I do all the sheep.
Nice.
And he has land and his own custom hay business, so it's a good connection. And he's a young dude in his 20s, and that's kind of the push to make sure that we bridge and strengthen communities and try to help people out, help him out, do things that are mutually beneficial. So he has some land that he leases and that he hays, and his folks' land and other neighbors, and they allow us to graze. We grazed the folks across the street. We grazed their land last year. We grazed the neighbor down the street. So we'll see. We'll get as big as it allows us, as the land allows us.
Well, and it sounds like for the time being, you can keep on growing if people want to buy up your product to the point where you're having to turn people away.
Yeah, and that's what we have to do right now. Luckily, 18 acres is a pretty decent size for what we're doing. We do rotationally grazing, so like every 2 days we're moving the sheep. We're never taking it down. They're never in one spot too long. Movement is kind of the key to life, and it's like just keep on going. So we were moving fence this morning. We got them into a little forest area with some cover because we were expecting a little rain. So, yeah, it's good.
So rotational grazing, that's becoming more and more recognized as a really beneficial way to do things. It's really the old-fashioned way of doing it.
Exactly.
But it seems like the science wasn't really understood for a while.
Right.
But now that's really coming. Talk about soil health and kind of the other side of raising that meat on the ground. Yeah,
I mean, I know that my ancestors were Bedouins and moved around and probably took camels and sheep and goats and didn't stay in one place too long. And that's kind of the way the bison herd here in America. How they would come in one area, trample it down, fertilize the area, and then predators would move them on, and they wouldn't come back to that area for a year, 6 months, 30 days, but they would give long rest periods. So, we stumbled across that, and, kind of just talking to my dad and kind of just getting tips from him and learning, what do we do? Oh, don't keep them in one area too long. So that kind of has helped us with not having to use any, commercial wormer or chemicals or weird funky things. As long as we keep the grass high and keep them moving, they don't have any issues with parasites. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, so it's really cool. As long as you don't keep them in one area too long, we tried to never keep the sheep in an area more than 7 days. So that's like the key. But, in the springtime, you can move a lot faster because the grass is growing, and then you just kind of slow down in the summertime. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how long is too long? But I've heard that it can be totally different depending on the farm, time of year, the animals.
Right. It all depends on the factors of your farm. So you want to keep the grass as long as possible. You want to trample a third, keep a third, leave a third behind, and then have them eat a third. So, yeah, it really just depends. But you just have to be out there and you have to learn. And we learned, some important lessons early on the hard way. And, we have progressed, and we made mistakes and we moved forward. Yeah.
You talk about not having to use wormer or dewormer, I guess, which is really cool. And I've heard from an organic dairy farmer just up the road from me where I live, who's doing rotational grazing and organic dairy, that because he doesn't use wormer, then the dung beetles are way more healthy in all of the poop, all the cow pies out in the field, so they eat it up and it breaks down way faster.
Absolutely.
Because there isn't dewormer in the manure.
Yeah, the chemicals are not killing the soil or sterilizing the soil, essentially, so that soil life, people who have farms, they're recognizing that it's about soil, it's about the microbes in the soil.
Yeah.
And we go a step further. We have pastured poultry out there following the ruminant animals. So, a few days after the sheep have eaten an area down and taken that nutrient off and taken that grass off and turned it into meat, what we do is we follow them with chicken tractors. And the chickens kind of sanitize the pasture. They scratch the manure and they spread it evenly, and then they aerate the soil, and then they leave behind and eat bugs and parasites, anything that could be growing, they eat that, and then they leave their fertilizer behind, and then the grass, 2-3 weeks after the chickens have been in the area, the grass just goes crazy.
Yeah, well, because chicken manure is really high in nitrogen.
Right, exactly. So, and
probably not as high in other organic matter that you're going to get from your ruminant animals.
Right. So it's a nice little ecosystem. So we're trying to we're trying to get back to, you know, the way nature does things and kind of just see what works. And
What else
whatnot.
do your sheep and goats eat? Like, are they mostly able to just eat grass through this, like, spring, summer, fall kind of thing?
Yeah, they're pretty much just grass. And then in the wintertime, and we pulled them into the barn around December, and for those months they just eat the hay that was actually cut on this property.
Nice.
And we won't be cutting hay this year. We're gonna let Jacob cut hay elsewhere and bring it to us. But
What's the reason for that? To let the grass kind of
so the reason is
build up?
yeah, we're gonna import that nutrient. So instead of cutting hay here would require us to use a lot of, you know, cutting hay and cutting hay and cutting hay, you're gonna have to eventually put something back. You got to put,
Right.
you know, a fertilizer back in there, and then so we're gonna let the folks who cut hay, and then we're not gonna own any of that equipment or do any of that. We're gonna let that happen off farm, and then anyone who wants to do that, and we'll import that nutrient. So we're trying to keep all of our nutrients in our soil, and we're trying to, you know, eventually what we'd like to do is just be 100% not relying on any hay. And I don't know if that's possible, but we're gonna find out.
How would you make it through the winter then?
Uh,
Can you graze all winter?
you
'Cause
can.
that could be hard on fields, right? People complain about the mud, at least here in Western Washington.
if you're
where-
moving enough, then
Yeah.
you might be able to get away with it. I know there's a guy in the Midwest, Greg Judy. He's a, you know, pretty famous dude on YouTube. You could check him out. But he has just cows and sheep together out on pasture all the time, and he just
Really?
moves them, and doesn't buy any hay. And I'm like, okay,
That's awesome.
yeah, he got his pastures over the decades, you know, able to sustain 100% of what they need. So we're not there yet. That's, you know, a lofty goal that we'd like to try to do.
Yeah, a
But
closed system. Everything comes from right
Right.
here. I guess
Yeah.
the only thing you're exporting then would be your meat and
Right.
whatever else you're growing.
right.
Talk about some of those other things that you're growing other than meat too. Like you have olive trees out here.
Yeah, we're trying to trial some olive trees and see if it will wilwork. A lot of folks in Oregon and the Willamette Valley are, you know, vineyards are trying different things. They're trying to, you know, with the weather looks like it's getting better and better here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
And actually it kind of matches up with the Mediterranean climate. So
Yeah.
we're trying different olive trees out there, and it looks like it's working. So we'll see.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's
Do you
cool.
guys have really cold winters here? Probably not too bad.
Super bad. Yeah, it's not super cold, but it will get, you know, we have plenty of freezing temps, and actually olives need some cold weather to
Really?
set. Yeah. And that's kind of our farm name is the Olive Branch Ranch. So I was
Yeah.
like, we need to have some sort of, we need to, you know, be true to the name and grow
That's-
some olives. Try it out.
And it's like, where else do you? I've never seen olives around here.
Right,
You
yeah.
know, what is it? California where they
Yeah.
grow olives?
Yeah,
Probably
California
the
and
closest.
Texas. Yeah,
Yeah.
California and Texas. Yeah, so you know, it's a kind of a fun passion project that we're trying to do in the future. So yeah, we're gonna try to see if it will work out.
So I know nothing about olives. What kind of olives are they? Like the actual fruit? Black olives, green olives?
So they're
what-
green olives, and that's something that my parents, you know, they own in Palestine. They own olive groves, and those are hundreds of years old, and that's kind of a big traditional thing that every kind of fall, everybody would go and pick olives, you know, shake them off the tree, collect them all, and then everyone would go to the community olive press, and they'd press their olives there, and they'd pickle some, and then they'd make their own olive oil, and man, it's the best olive oil. We get it shipped from Palestine every year. So next time I see you, I'm going to bring you some olive oil.
Yeah, you have the hookup to the good stuff.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Because I would have no idea like where to go other than just what's you
Yeah,
know the
in the
stuff that
store.
they stock on the shelf in the grocery store.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
some of that's good. Yeah. But
sure not the same as that stuff.
no, that's the good stuff.
So what are you going to do with your olives here? Are you going to press them? Are you going to pickle them? What do you?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of a far off goal, but that would be awesome to have our own olive oil, or you know, pickle our own olives. Yeah, that would be cool.
yeah. How long until they actually produce a decent amount of?
Probably
fruit.
4 to 7 years until
Yeah.
you'd get really mature trees and whatnot, and yeah.
And how big is an olive tree? I guess they just
Oh,
keep
they
getting
can get
bigger.
huge. Yeah, they can get huge. They can grow very big. Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah, olives are cool.
Is that the deal with those old olive orchards in
Yeah.
in Palestine? Like,
Yeah.
is it the same trees? Do they have to replant, or can
They do replant trees, but man, some of those trees are 300 years old,
crazy.
200 years old, 150 years old, 50 years old. It's like, wow, these are, they 1 year they'll give a good crop, and then the next year kind of not so great, and then the next year, they'll take seasons off. But it's amazing. The history behind it is pretty cool.
Yeah. So what brought your dad here? You said it was college, but what was his game plan? What was he going to college for? Where did he go?
Yeah, he went to college in New Mexico. That's actually where I was born, and he was he went to college in New Mexico, studied computer science there, and decided that raising his kids here would be a good thing to do, and he liked it, so we stayed. Yeah.
And what brought your family then up here to Western Washington?
Oh,
I suppose if his background is in computers, there's a lot of tech.
Yeah, there's a lot of tech. I guess back in the day, there was no internet back then, 30, 40 years ago, but someone just said, "Hey, there's some good work in Olympia, Washington. Why don't you go move up there?" So we just drove the station wagon from New Mexico up here, and the rest is history.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So when did he? What was he doing then? Like computer stuff, programming or whatnot?
Yeah,
he's
a database administrator, so he's into computers. My mom's a stay-at-home mom. They're both awesome. They both are, very smart, highly educated, and we're all college educated, all of their kids. And the farm is just kind of something that we all bond over. And, my sister brings her boys here, and my dad and me bond over it. He's always trying to push me to come to, he's like, "Hey, what are we doing on the farm this weekend? What do we got going on? What projects?" And it's, it's an awesome thing.
So he's still doing the computer thing.
Yeah, he retires in a year, and then he's probably just going to be hanging out at the farm.
Yeah, I was going to say,
that's probably what he's going to be doing.
So that probably just takes him back so much to his childhood if that's what he grew up around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he loves it. I mean, he loves eating from the land, growing his own vegetables, and he does that at his house too. He grows vegetables, huge garden. His whole entire backyard got converted into a garden. There's barely any walk space. I'm like, okay, looks like we're going to need to buy some acreage then. And that's kind of what set off the farm journey. But yeah, it definitely takes him back. He used to, milk sheep, milk goats, and milk cows, and then take the cheese before work to the marketplace and sell it to a guy. And I remember when we were back in Palestine once, he took me to the place where he used to sell the cheese, and it was cool to come full circle and to see,
so much history there too.
Lots.
I'm sure your family probably goes back there farther than records exist.
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Ottoman Empire, the British Empire. It's like, dang, Grandma, you got a lot of different IDs with a lot of different Turkish, Arabic. What is this?
Oh, what a region of the world, and kind of the crossroads of a lot of things over the course of history. What part of Palestine?
The West Bank, kind of the cradle of civilization over there, where agriculture and farming and everything kind of started.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's cool.
I remember learning about it in school, and I've always wanted to get to that part of the world. Maybe someday.
Yeah, someday. I'll take you.
So you've been back there a couple times?
Yeah, I've traveled in the Middle East, been to Egypt, Jordan, Palestine. Yeah,
awesome.
Been there. We used to go a lot in the summertime.
Yeah, I bet it's hot over there.
Oh, it's pretty warm.
Yeah, what's climate change like there too? Like, is it a lot warmer there than Because I mean, obviously, you're growing olives here now, so obviously something's happening here. What about over there?
It's becoming increasingly dry and arid, and I'm really into like regreening the desert. That's kind of like I love that kind of stuff. So I follow projects in Saudi Arabia and projects in Jordan to regreen the desert, and finding all these regenerative agricultural techniques that could help regreen and reforest and bring life back to that area. So a lot of people think that a lot of the political problems in that area, the Syrian civil war, they can trace that to climate change. They can trace that to disruption in the crops and people not having employment, and leaders kind of know, if people don't have bread, they're gonna riot. Essentially, is kind of the old adage. So
totally,
so it's arid over there. They're having a lot of water issues.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
we don't have that kind of pressure here, but I know the pressure is building here.
Yeah, it definitely
and especially
is.
other parts of the West facing drought. Thankfully, we're looking okay, I think, for this year.
Yeah, we're looking okay for this year, but it is important to try to figure out how to manage our water cycles, how to, rehydrate the water cycles, and everyone do their part to try to do what they can, essentially. Yeah, definitely.
What's the biggest challenge for you to keep this whole thing going? It's got to be getting to be a lot now.
Yeah,
that
it's becoming a lot. It's a lot of
stuff
the yeah, I guess it's a lot of the, the regulation that try to, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to do custom exempt slaughter? Am I going to do USDA? How do I figure out, what should I do? Should I go direct to consumer? Should I try to sell to like supermarkets?
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of an interesting, it's finding the time to get everything done.
Yeah. Where can people buy your stuff right now?
Well, they can go to the website, and then we could they could find a custom exempt slaughter facility that will take the lamb there. And
so if they buy a share of the animal, and we talked about this with a few different producers here on the podcast, just with the rules the way they are and how hard it is to get USDA slaughter.
Right, and apparently I think there's a bill that just passed or is going to be passing that is going to make it easier. But a lot of the supply chain problems that farmers are having, and that's an issue with a lot of small farms, is supply chain. How do I get my product into my customers' hands, and how do I get fairly compensated for that and whatnot? So there's a lot of logistics about that, and COVID last year kind of exposed a lot of exposed the food industry. The big Tyson plants with thousands of people on the cut floor, and the way they do it, we kind of need little small butcher shops to come back into fashion and into style the way they did it in the 50s before, meat packing changed.
So olivebranchranch.com or what's
the olivebranchranch.com.
The olivebranchranch.com.
Right.
And so there
It's a mouthful.
I guess you sell direct, but not really direct, right? Because they still have to buy a share in an animal. They can't just hey, I want a few specific cuts, because then you'd have to go through different processing.
Right, that is correct. So that's kind of what we're hoping to do in the future, is hoping to have some sort of mail order where we just you order what you want, and then we send it directly freeze dried to your house. So that's kind of the end game there. But we got to get everything in stock before we could launch. So it's an interesting balance. It's okay, we have a bunch of demand, but we don't want to we've never had to advertise. It's pretty crazy. So social media is growing. A lot of people are, want to know where their food comes from. They want to see their food. They want to know, what the farmer, people ask me are you guys organic? I'm like, no, we're certified by you guys. You could come to the farm anytime and you could see how your chickens are being treated, how your lambs are being treated, what they're eating, you guys kind of drive the process.
Yeah. So why don't you get certified?
I think it's just a long process, a long and expensive process. And it's a lot of people, it's just a marketing label. You go to the store and you look at these eggs and it says, vegetarian fed eggs. And you're like, wait, chickens are like little dinosaurs. They scratch around, they eat bugs. They're not vegetarian. They'll eat meat. They'll eat eggshells. They'll eat anything, essentially.
Yeah, a lot of people would rather not have a vegetarian egg, because a vegetarian egg is probably just going to be only a corn-fed diet or whatever.
Right, corn or soy or whatnot. Yeah. So it's you don't want that. So it's kind of educating, and that's kind of the idea behind our Instagram account, is that we try to educate people and show them this is what your food eats, and this is how your food is raised, and we try to get past all the labels and all the marketing terms. What really matters is animals outside on grass. That's kind of what matters. Yeah. Pasture raised. If you're looking for one thing that you want to know about, it's pasture raised. Pasture raised eggs, or lamb or goat or cow or whatever, is having animals outside on pasture, free to roam, in sunshine, fresh air. Yeah, that's kind of the end all be all.
Do you have people come out and be like, hey, I want to see where this meat that I'm buying from you is coming from?
Yeah, absolutely.
They come check it out?
Yeah, there's been folks, Bellevue, Seattle, down from Portland. You know, we get visitors all the time. People who just want to visit, people who, you know, I mean, even after the COVID area, people are like, yeah, I want my kids to, you know, everyone was bored at home and just scrolling through social media, and they wanted their kids to see, you know, animals. They wanted their kids to, you know, discover that and rediscover that. So yeah, it's been good.
So this is your full-time deal. You farm all day, every day?
No, it's not. This is my passion project that I try to fit in everywhere.
So what do you do for your quote-unquote real job?
For my quote-unquote real job, I work for the state.
Okay.
Yeah, so I work for the state of Washington, and I fit in the farming early in the morning, late at night, weekends.
Yeah.
The time that I take, you know, most people take vacation and they go somewhere nice. I take vacation and I'm like, okay, these are the projects I need to get done on the farm. Yeah.
Only have so much time.
Right. Yeah. And then I'm also a real estate agent on the side too.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff. I got 3 jobs. It's like, man, the farming, the real estate. Yeah. The main job.
So what kind of stuff do you do for the state?
I work for the Board of Appeals. So
it's
a desk job.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you know that whole world too.
Yeah, workers' compensation.
Okay, yeah.
Anytime anyone gets hurt at work, their case comes to our court.
Probably feels good to get out of the office and get back on the farm.
I love it, man. This is my happy spot. It's quiet out here. It's awesome. It's nice. It's great out here. I would love to do this full time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, is that your goal?
Yeah, that's the goal. The goal would be to not work. This, you know, do something I love. You know, hang out with my dad all day and move sheep. Hang out with Jacob, hang out with Kate, and move sheep all day. That'd be the best thing to do. Yeah.
What would it take, and how hard is it going to be to make that leap to be like, yeah, I'm going to quit my day job? I know that's for a lot of people, not just in farming, but people with side hustles. That's the big step that everyone's scared of.
Yeah. Everyone's scared of it, but eventually that's the goal. I mean, it would take, you know, a good income, and hopefully, you know, I'm kind of obsessed with trying to figure out how to make small farms work, essentially.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a really good guy on YouTube, Richard Perkins, out of Sweden. He's British, but he lives in Sweden, owns a small farm, about 25 acres, same thing, and he's killing it. He's he's paying 2 people. Him and his wife have that, you know, have an income from the farm, and he's raising a family doing it. And I'm like, okay, if that guy can do it, we can do it too. We have, you know, the resources, we have the rain, a lot of, you know, anytime I feel like complaining, I'm like, you got to think of the people in the Middle East who don't have rain in their farm.
Exactly.
So we're going to try to make it work.
Awesome.
We're going to try to figure it out.
And what about family and all of that? You have family involved in the farm?
Yeah, everybody's involved, you know, from the sisters to the lady to the parents. Yeah, everybody's involved. Everyone's, you know, it's a family ordeal. It's fun. You know, and, you know, if you're a foodie, which we are, and we love food, it's like, you get down to the root. And a lot of people call themselves foodies, and I'm like, okay, but are you really? Do you really know where your food's coming from? Are you getting really good meat? Are you getting really good eggs for your baking? Are you getting really good ingredients for, you know, really good butter from, you know, directly from a farm or from a co-op, or, you know,
What about the future of this farm? Like, do you imagine maybe this continuing on, the next generation, things like that?
Yeah, I would sure hope so. Yeah, I'd sure hope that my kids would want to do this and, you know, have that sort of relationship that I have with my dad. I mean, my dad is basically my best friend, so it's like, man, like I just love doing it. I love hanging out with him, talking about things with him, and bouncing ideas off with him, and you know, I see the joy that it brings him, and it's something that we connect over, and it's really cool.
And I've just always seen that as something that really changes how a farm operates, like what its MO is, because, I mean, if you're stewarding a piece of land,
right,
and a reputation as well for the kind of product that you have, a customer base, all these things that you're investing in over the course of your farming career, you don't want to just throw that away, walk away, and be like, yeah, whatever. Like, families want to continue that on.
Right, absolutely. And then it's, you know, you're doing something good for the community. I mean, it's so cool when people are like, hey, we have this huge party, you know, we have a wedding reception and we'd really like to serve lamb there, and we want 2 or 3 lamb, or, you know, we just are celebrating this or celebrating that, and, you know, and then everyone's like, man, this lamb is so good. Where did you get, you know, and it's like, this is awesome.
We grew it.
Right. We grew it. And it's cool when people ask and refer their friends, and I get a lot of joy from that, producing food for people. It's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your story here
Yeah,
with
man.
us
It's
and
been-
having us to the farm.
Yeah. It's been great to have you.
I'm sorry that we had to dodge the rain.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. We did it in the old barn. It's still nice out.
I know the cats have been messing with my camera over there, so we'll see how that angle of the video
Sorry
turned
about
out.
that. The cats attacked you.
It's-
The cats attacked you.
all of a sudden, I had a cat on my back.
Right. I had
Like,
to take
oh
the
yeah,
bell-
I am in a barn. This is
Right.
real. This is the real deal.
Right. I had to take the bells off the dairy goats and feed them and try to give them some treats. And, hey, guys, here's some good hay. You know, please be quiet while we're recording.
You can't fake this right here.
Yeah. It has the poop and everything, man.
It's on my boots.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the real stuff.
Yeah. Thanks for coming and making the big journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it. We'll
me.
do it again sometime.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks.
This is the Real Food, Real People podcast. These are the stories of the people who grow your food.